this is an ongoing secret war.
Can be exploited in a way to be a vehicle for that transnational repression.
A war in which the Chinese Communist Party, otherwise known as the CCP, attempts to hijack free societies to persecute innocent people.
The level of transnational aggression that has never been seen before.
It's a war without the smoke of guns, but with enough power to deal a shock to the very foundations of free countries.
The United States doesn't want to be at war with China, but China has essentially declared war on the United States, and the United States and the rest of the free world would be smart to take that very seriously.
Shen Yun, a world-class performance of classical Chinese dance and music presented by practitioners of Falun Gong, performs before 1 million audience members every single year at sold-out theaters around the world. However, over the past year, wherever it went, a dark cloud of terror from Communist China closely followed. Since early 2024, emails threatening violence have continuously been sent to Shen Yun's touring companies, the theaters that host their performances, Falun Gong practitioners, as well as government officials in different countries who support Falun Gong. While the origin of the emails is hard to ascertain, the concerted effort and the choice of targets suggest an orchestrated campaign by the CCP. Falun Gong, also called Falun Dafa, is a traditional Chinese spiritual practice that centers on the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance. The threats against them involve a variety of violent methods, including bomb attacks, shootings, sexual assault, murder, cyber attacks, among several others.
Versus last month in March, where we documented 35 threats, 80% of which, 28 of which were Shen Yun Performing Arts alone. These false bomb threats to cause terror and to cause a scare in the audience and in the community where Shen Yun is performing is extremely concerning, and it's a national security threat. The level of transnational aggression that has never been seen before.
It's very hard to believe that, the threats of violence associated with Shen Yun in various countries are not in some way coordinated. That staggers the imagination. These things are happening spontaneously. After years of them not happening, suddenly they are all at once. It seems far more likely that the PRC has a role in that. And look, that's foreign interference here and in other countries, and we absolutely should have investigated that a great deal more thoroughly than was actually done.
In March of 2025, during Shen Yun's performances in Taiwan, over a dozen threatening emails were sent to multiple Taiwanese government agencies warning of shootings or bombings. The Criminal Investigation Bureau immediately established a cross-unit task force. According to Liberty Times, the threats have been preliminarily traced to the vicinity of the Huawei Research Institute in Shanxi Province, China. They're suspected to be linked to individuals associated with Huawei Group, with the possibility of involvement by nearby CCP cyber forces not having been ruled out.
These are standard tactics of the Communist Party of China and Communist General and authoritarians. But we're well familiar with the threats and the coercion and the intimidation by the Communist Chinese Party. But the United States has to stand firm that that can't be something that is able to be successful.
Most of these violent threats and death threats ultimately prove to be false. However, over the years, the deliberate sabotage of Shen Yun's dedicated buses has been an extremely concerning reality. On March 15, 2024, the Costa Mesa Police Department in Orange County, California, confirmed that an approximately 7-inch gash was found on the side of a Shen Yun bus tire. This type of a gash could cause the tire to blow out while the vehicle is traveling at high speed, leading to a major accident.
This is not an ordinary cut. It was done with a knife. It's very, very deep, and it was done in such a way that the tire would not deflate right away, but would rather blow up at high speed under pressure on the highway.
These are my children there. They're performing because they want to perform. They are dancers. Yet they're being threatened on American soil. Can you think what happens to a bus if you burst the tire at high speed? The bus people around it, the vehicles around it, the people on the bus, what's going to happen? To me, that's attempted murder. That is absolutely unacceptable.
Other common CCP intimidation tactics include impersonating Falun Gong practitioners to send emails to theaters which host Shen Yun performances. These emails warn the theaters that they will suffer misfortune if they do not give their full support to the performances, in effect, trying to smear Falun Gong practitioners as extremists. At the onset of its persecution against Falun Gong, the CCP mobilized all of China's propaganda machine to relentlessly defame and spread rumors about Falun Gong practitioners. Today, in the United States more than 20 years later, it turns out many Chinese people are reliving this familiar scene. Since August of 2024, the New York Times has published 10 articles attacking Shen Yun and Falun Gong, 8 of which were translated into Mandarin for their Chinese language edition. These articles adopt the propaganda narrative of the Chinese Communist Party, fully melding the CCP's smear campaign against Shen Yun and Falun Gong into the international community.
The latest attack that I saw also shows you the vulnerabilities in how some of the West's media outlets can be exploited in a way to be a vehicle for that transnational repression. I think it's a real shame, and it is a real blemish on what is otherwise a reputable outlet.
At the same time, the New York Times' articles received unusually prompt and high-level cooperation from CCP agents. Immediately after the publication of the first article, pro-CCP individuals who have, for a long time, actively collaborated with the CCP in attacking and harassing Falun Gong practitioners turned the article's contents into posters and flyers and hired people to distribute them on the streets of New York.
你什么时候跟他拿钱？
我发完了，我每天我来这儿完成了任务以后，他就会发给我工资。
At the same time, a massive surge appeared online in the sharing of the Chinese version of the New York Times article. Data from social media analysis tool BuzzSumo indicates that 80% of the social media accounts sharing the New York Times article had no followers. This kind of highly coordinated, large-scale online activity is characteristic of the CCP's 50-cent army, which are paid commentators, as well as of actions by military and state security agents. While launching media warfare on US soil, the CCP also opened another battlefront. On the surface, it is targeting Shen Yun and Falun Gong, but in reality, it's taking aim at the very foundation of the United States. After the New York Times published 10 defamatory articles one after another, which laid the groundwork, the CCP manipulated its overseas proxies to launch a legal campaign aiming to coerce the US government into criminalizing Shen Yun and Falun Gong. They did this by filing multiple lawsuits involving environmental and labor issues. This wave of legal warfare marks a significant escalation in the CCP's hijacking of the US judicial system. Previously, Alex Skilla, an American who lived in China for 15 years, had filed an environmental lawsuit against Dragon Springs, the headquarters of Shen Yun Performing Arts. However, a judge dismissed the lawsuit in September of 2024, ruling that Skilla's claims were riddled with flaws and prohibited similar lawsuits to be filed in the future. The CCP is continuing to manipulate its proxies, inciting a small number of so-called witnesses with grievances against Shen Yun and Falun Gong to spread false statements and orchestrate more conspiracies in order to carry out transnational repression against Falun Gong using the US judicial system and the media.
That's unrestricted warfare, and they fight on every single inch of battlefield, whether it's threats, whether it's the legal, diplomatic, military, economic. They fight on every single inch of the battlefield. That's what's important for the United States and the West in general, to understand the pathology of this enemy.
In late 2024, Australia-based scholar Yuan Hong Bing revealed that prior to the CCP's 20th National Congress in 2022, CCP leader Xi Jinping held a secret meeting explicitly demanding an escalation of international attacks on Falun Gong. The specific plan was to have one central focus, two basic directions. The central focus was to directly target the founder of Falun Gong. The two directions were media warfare and legal warfare. These plans were deployed and implemented in 2024. A leaked CCP internal meeting document said that in June of 2024, the CCP Public Security Ministry made the following demand: mobilize covert personnel to create and escalate internal conflicts within Falun Gong, continuously expand the scope, depth, and impacts of attacks, aiming to draw sustained attention from all of American society and force the US government to comprehensively suppress and eradicate Falun Gong forces. CCP Public Security Ministry officials also instructed subordinates to fully support 2 YouTubers in Japan and the United States who defame Falun Gong while activating overseas agent networks and agents embedded within Falun Gong to provide content for these YouTubers. In August of 2024, the US YouTuber publicly proposed disrupting Shen Yun through 3 battlefields: the judicial system, major media like the New York Times, and Chinese language online spaces, aligning closely with the leaked CCP documents. In January of 2025, the Epoch Times received insider information from mainland China stating that the CCP's goal is to prosecute Falun Gong and Shen Yun in the United States, and that the establishment of just one single case would already be enough to generate rumors and ultimately achieve the goal of destroying Falun Gong. "25 years ago, US Falun Gong practitioners founded the Epoch Times. Since then, the media outlet has grown in many countries and has become a significant global voice exposing the CCP's atrocities. In 2006, Falun Gong practitioners in New York established Shen Yun Performing Arts, reviving the traditional Chinese culture and arts that were destroyed by communism and in the process, captivating global audiences. In its performances, Shen Yun also exposes the facts about the CCP's tyranny and showcases the compassion and courage of Falun Gong practitioners. This is precisely the truth that the CCP fears the world will come to know, and therefore, they strive to conceal it. As Falun Gong's voice grows internationally, the CCP, aware of its existential crisis and the risk of its collapse, is desperately seeking to destroy Falun Gong's reputation in order to prolong its own survival. The Falun Dafa Information Center considers this an unprecedented foreign malign influence campaign aimed at using US institutions to undermine and defame Shen Yun and ultimately silence Falun Gong. Should such tactics prove effective, the CCP could very well replicate them against any American individual or organization. Therefore, exposing and stopping the CCP's transnational repression in a timely manner is critical to US national security, state sovereignty, and democratic resilience. Since 2023, several CCP spies involved in the transnational repression of Falun Gong and Shen Yun have been arrested in the US and faced legal consequences. Chen Jun, a 73-year-old man, was arrested in May of 2023 and pled guilty in July of 2024, admitting to acting as an unregistered agent of the CCP in a criminal conspiracy targeting Shen Yun and Falun Gong. In November of 2024, Chen was sentenced to 20 months in prison. Lin Feng, aged 45, was arrested in May of 2023 and pled guilty in July of 2024, admitting to collaborating with Chen Jun to harass and intimidate Falun Gong practitioners. In September of 2024, Lin was sentenced to 16 months in prison. Li Ping, aged 60, provided information on US-based Falun Gong practitioners to the CCP Ministry of State Security since at least 2012. Li was arrested in July of 2024. In November of 2024, he was sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined $250,000 for acting as a CCP agent. Lu Jianwang and Chen Jingping, pro-CCP community leaders in New York, assisted the CCP in harassing Falun Gong practitioners since at least 2015, operating CCP overseas police stations and engaging in transnational repression. Both were arrested in 2023 and charged with acting as CCP agents. In the face of the CCP's heavily funded transnational repression, you can use independent thinking when you read news about China. The CCP is making use of its proxies, US media, and unwitting allies to spread blatantly false or misleading information, including about Falun Gong and Shen Yun. It's very necessary to maintain reasonable skepticism and stay vigilant about narratives that are closely aligned with CCP propaganda. If you notice anything irregular, report it immediately. CCP agents often impersonate Shen Yun artists or Falun Gong practitioners to send messages aimed at undermining those communities. In most cases, these impersonations are easily identifiable. If you see or receive suspicious messages from a Shen Yun artist or a Falun Gong practitioner, please preserve the original records and contact the Falun Dafa Information Center at contact@faluninfo.net. The CCP's malicious influence operations pose a significant security threat to free, democratic societies, particularly its use of incentives to target government officials and its weaponization of Western media and judicial systems. The Falun Dafa Information Center is seeking to collaborate with government officials worldwide to counter this serious threat. As the CCP exports its war against Falun Gong and Shen Yun to the United States and other free countries, the alarm bell is sounding at the same time, because the CCP absolutely will not stop at persecuting Falun Gong, but rather is targeting the foundation of all free nations.
If we stay on the road we're on right now, in less than 10 years, virtually everything that matters to us in life will depend on whether China will allow us to have it or not.